Welcome, sport management students, to our Zoomcast series, Interviews with Professionals, and this is episode 2. And today, we're fortunate enough to have the opportunity to sit down and talk a little bit with Maggie Neil, who is the Partnership Activation Manager for the Churchill Downs. And for you students that aren't familiar with the Churchill Downs, this is where the Kentucky Derby, which I know you're familiar with that, it's hosted every year. And Maggie, thank you for coming with us and chatting with us today.
Absolutely.
So these opportunities in these Zoomcast interviews, Maggie, are kind of an opportunity for us to hear the story about professionals working in the sport industry today. And through that, we hope that the students will kind of understand the paths or the journeys that some have taken to get where they are today in the industry. So with that being said, I want to take a little bit of time here first and get your story, if you don't mind, and you have a very unique and interesting story that is very applicable to what a lot of people in sport management experience. So if you don't mind, can you share with us your story on how you've gotten to where you are today?
Sure, not a problem. So yeah, as you said, I am here at Churchill Downs in Louisville, Kentucky, and we just hosted the 146th running of the Kentucky Derby. It was a different year for that, but it's taken a long time for me to get where I am. I started out in a small town high school playing sports, probably like many people in your class, and decided that I wanted to make a career out of it. So I actually started as a part-time box office attendant at a minor league baseball facility in Erie, Pennsylvania, working for the Seawolves. And that was really where my love of working for sports grew. From there, I attended Penn State University and majored in commercial recreation, was the name of the sport degree, basically, and continued to work with the Seawolves every summer. So I did 2 different internships there, one in sales and one in marketing, prior to graduating. Then within the senior semester, we did like a co-op program where I worked for the minor league baseball team in State College and did a full season with them in the promotions department. From there, I was hired by a sister team that owned the State College Spikes and moved to Myrtle Beach, where I was the director of promotions for the Myrtle Beach Pelicans. So I spent 3 baseball seasons in Myrtle Beach doing marketing and promotions for that team. I then followed my then boss to Atlanta and joined the AAA Braves affiliate in Gwinnett County. So we had the luxury of being a major league owned franchise, which came with some perks, but we were the AAA team in the backyard of the Braves, where most people just wanted to go to the Braves games. So I spent 3 seasons there, again, in charge of marketing and promotions, oversaw the internship program there, as well as the game day staff and on-field entertainment. From there, I transferred back to Erie, PA, where I did a season in minor league basketball for the Erie Bayhawks, which is now in the G League, the NBA. I did a season there before working for 2 years almost with Penn State Erie, the branch campus of Penn State in Erie, Pennsylvania. I worked as the assistant to the athletic director there for 2 years, overseeing. They have 22 different men's and women's sports teams, everything from wrestling, bowling, track and field to soccer. So I spent 2 seasons there, 2 years, before coming here to Churchill. So I've been here for 5 years now, and I am an activation manager. So I'm overseeing about 15 different sponsorship accounts here. So we have a sales team and an activation team. I'm on the activation team that engages with the clients and ensures that they get all of their contractual obligations for their marketing rights here at Churchill. So everything from Ford, who is the official truck of the Kentucky Derby, and all their marketing elements, down to a program ad with Office Depot, and everything in between. So again, there's 4 of us on the team. We each have about a dozen partners, which keeps us quite busy.
Yeah, for sure. So you've kind of mentioned in this a couple major areas within the sports industry that a lot of my students are interested in looking into. You mentioned sales and marketing with the Erie Seawolves. You mentioned marketing and promotion with Myrtle Beach Pelicans. You mentioned sponsorship with Churchill Downs. And those are all areas and segments that students have interest in. If I could ask you personally, what is your favorite kind of branch of, or which one of those is your favorite? Or one?
Yeah, so I think they each have their own pros and cons.
Sure.
So when I was just out of college, promotions was a ton of fun. It's a ton of work. And if I had to go back and do it now, I think I'd probably be exhausted. But the promotion side of minor league baseball and coming up with theme nights and entertainment and the between innings games and contests was so much fun. And we did it as a team, kind of. Most of the front office staff had some input on that. And we always had brainstorms and retreats in the off season to kind of come up with that promotional calendar. And that was always a lot of fun. It took a lot of energy and a lot of organization to kind of keep things lined up. But it was the most entertaining, at least, of all the things that I've done. The sales side of things is probably where the majority of job availability lies. I think you have the most opportunity to transition between teams, sports, levels, etc., with some sales under your belt. Being on the activation side of it now is a little bit of a niche market. Not every team or organization has both sales and activation. A lot of times they're kind of rolled into one. So it's nice to be able to only have to focus on client services of that. And again, I think there's still opportunity to move from the facility side to the brand side to other teams from within the sponsorship side. I think sponsorship is equally as rewarding as promotions and marketing, just because you see things go from a contract to its fruition, whether that's here at the track and the sponsorship of the races, or all of the things that happen going into the Derby that lead up to the most exciting 2 minutes in sports. Even back to the minor league baseball days, where you had a sponsor come in and they sponsored a crazy promotion that ended up getting some national media attention or something. And you felt that sense of accomplishment from it. So there's different perks to being within any department.
Sure. Now, knowing my students and questions that they would ask on this, and I don't want to take away any limelight from where you are right now with the Churchill Downs, but a lot of them have aspirations working in promotion and marketing and sales for front offices, and you have a vast experience in that. So I want to come back and ask a question kind of on their behalf. Right now, working in professional sports and minor league sports, the front office people in sales, marketing, promotion have to be so innovative just because of the times, especially now with COVID. It's something that innovation is at the forefront because we have to figure out ways to be entertaining. When you were doing marketing and promotion, what were some of the things that you remember, or some of the promotions that you remember? I know you had Vanna White throw your first pitch at a game, and I think there's a lot of other celebrities, Sergeant Slaughter of the WWE, Hall of Famers. So what were some of the unique promotions that you guys created on your own that you can really remember?
So with minor league baseball, and I think you're kind of seeing this come to light in the recent news of Major League Baseball potentially acquiring minor league baseball, which is a really interesting dynamic. But, the news kind of coming out of that is how scrappy minor league baseball is, and how Major League Baseball can benefit from that, while minor league baseball can benefit from the structure of Major League Baseball. But I think that the innovative side comes from, you're relying on ticket sales in the minor league baseball, and not everyone's going to love baseball, but everyone likes a night out with their family. Everyone likes to be entertained. Everyone likes to enjoy nice weather. So what can you do to target those people who maybe aren't fans of the sport, but just want a nice night out? And kind of how can you keep thinking about new and different? We did a retro celebrity series in State College where we brought in Eric Estrada, who's an old name, who
none of my students will know.
I know. But the people from Gilligan's Island and the old retro shows that you could target retirement homes in the area and say, hey, come out, have a group night, we'll give you a discount price, and you get to meet Gilligan. and just kind of coming up with those creative ways where you can find outreach, especially minor league baseball, everything's driven by ticket sales. So anything you can do that allows for a new avenue, a new outreach, a new product, Thirsty Thursday nights with dollar beers, brings in a younger crowd. When Atlanta, they had a large post-concert series where after the game, they would literally bring a stage out and have like an A-list concert. Zach Brown Band, Ludacris, large-scale artists that they're just hoping to sell more tickets to that day's game to people who don't even care about baseball just because they know they're going to be entertained after the fact. So I think, there's so many different opportunities to have those large scale impact events. And it's just a matter of trying to figure out what the next new thing is and how you can increase your audience size.
Very cool. Very cool. Next piece, the next question I kind of want to talk about is all my students are freshmen and sophomores right now. Their educational and professional journeys are all ahead of them. But this is the point where it's really important to make the correct steps and make the correct decisions on how to get to the next spot. So if I could ask you, with your college education, and it was in a program very similar to sport management, were there any courses or opportunities or clubs or anything extracurricular that helped you or helped prepare you for getting your foot into the industry and continuing on throughout the industry?
Yeah, so I really started working part-time, honestly, in the box office was like my first foray into sports. I was still in high school when I started that. And I saw the interns at the Seawolves having a blast and wanted to figure out how to be that. So that was kind of my first foot in the door to figuring out what made the most sense for me. And that was just a local opportunity, right? But there's so many programs out there with sports internships that pay dividends for a multitude of reasons, whether it's connections you can make within them. I still have friendships of people that I interned with that have now gone on to different sports endeavors that I stay in touch with. People that I worked with in the past when I was an intern but were full-time. That's how I'm here at Churchill, was just maintaining those connections. So I think the main thing is just getting out and exposing yourself to every different opportunity within sports. I knew that I enjoyed sports in general, and I didn't necessarily want to work in a box office forever. But maybe you're more analytical, and that does make sense. Maybe you're good at spreadsheets and numbers, and you like working in a box office. You can translate that to any organization, theater, venue, live entertainment, concerts that have box offices. So it's really just a matter of trying to get out as much and as often as possible to what those different opportunities are. There's rotational programs within larger organizations where you can go to different properties, go to different teams, go to different departments, and just see every different aspect. I mean, here we have 70 different people within our front office, everything from people that organize the racing calendar to operations, to security, to food and beverage, to sponsorship. So even within one given entity of a sports property, you still have upwards of 70 different unique positions. So whether it's an internship or even getting out there and doing an informal interview of someone that's in a dream position that you wish you could do, to just reach out and say, hi, I'm a freshman and I'm interested in what you do. I would love to interview you informally. Would you have 30 minutes to spare? 9 times out of 10, they're going to say yes, because, if you show that passion and that drive, there's people that want to help the next generation of sports marketing managers get to that level. And they're happy to share their stories and their insights, and every connection that you make is one that will put you closer to where you want to be.
Great. That's great advice. And I'm actually going to piggyback in a second about another question pertaining to advice, but even the students at Jamestown Community College that want to work in pro sports, we have the Jamestown Tarp Skunks. We have the Jamestown Rebels, which is a minor league hockey team. We have the Jamestown Jackals, which is a minor league basketball team. And then we have all the other the Boys and Girls Clubs, the YMCAs, the facilities that they could get into. So I love that advice about being able to just shoot an email out and ask for an interview or network and build those connections. And it sounds like from your story that your connections and your networks that you developed at a young age and continuing to develop have really paid off for you as well, especially in your journey.
It's kind of the tough spot of sports too, is that, you know, how many students are in your class?
Just under 30.
That's one class at one institution, and multiply that times every other community college, Division III, Division II, Division I, times 30 kids or more. There's that many students trying to get to the next level, and there's not that many jobs. And there's not that many jobs as you continue to get higher and higher in sports. You know, the pyramid of those in the industry continues to get smaller as you get closer to the top. So, you know, the more you can do to get the experience, get well-rounded experience, learn how to be a utility player, whether it's joining a front office to just be an intern. You know, I've picked gum off the bottom of seats before. I've been a mascot more times than I care to admit. So it's really just a matter of, you know, kind of positioning yourself to get as much well-rounded experience and exposure to the different departments so that you can kind of hone in on, okay, I'm good at this, I'm not good at that, but here's what I want to do, here's what I want to work on, and this is the position and path that, you know, will see me forward to that next level.
Yeah, that's excellent. So continuing on with that, and I kind of want to, I'm going to save the advice question for a few questions down the road because we sparked or kind of touch on something else. So you've had the opportunity with all the different areas that you've worked in, you've had the opportunity to hire interns and hire entry-level front office people. So I want to ask, what are things that you look for in that hiring process that can differentiate students or potential employees from each other? And the reason I ask that is next week we're starting to get into a lot more of developing that professional perspective and the importance of networking and proper communication and image and how you carry yourself and skills and qualities that you possess. So what are some things that you really look for when interviewing and hiring interns and entry-level employees?
Yeah, so, you know, every situation is different and every hiring manager is going to be unique. But I think that, again, so the sheer numbers of how many people apply to each job, if all you have on your resume is your education, it's not necessarily going to be enough, because everyone's going to have that at the end of the day, or everyone that graduates is going to be able to say, here's my GPA and here's my class schedule. Okay, well, there's 45 people that applied for the same position with that. Who stands out and why? What have you done to gain different experience, unique experience? You know, even establishing a network of connections where maybe someone is submitting your resume on your behalf makes a huge difference. To have a personal recommendation or even a letter of recommendation, even if it's generic, from, you know, the general manager of the team that you worked part-time for, that just says, this person's a really hard worker, call me if you have any questions. I mean, that's going to do you a multitude of favors in establishing that you are a hard worker, but also that you've done your due diligence of putting in the effort to make the connection with the GM, but also that they're willing to speak on your behalf, shows that they're backing you up. So it adds validity to that resume. So it's not just a cold, you know, cover letter of, hello, I am this person and I have done this. Like it really makes you jump off the page a little more. And the more experience that you have on there, the better, whether it's volunteer opportunities, anything that shows that you're dedicated, hardworking. Again, you're going to work 80-hour weeks in sports. So what have you done other than school that shows that you have the aptitude to handle that?
That's great. That's great advice. And I'm going to come back to you later on at the end of this for one last kind of nugget or piece of wisdom that you can share. But you've been sharing tons of it with these students. And these are all things that they can start applying and they can start putting into play right now. So I really appreciate that. I think it's going to be beneficial. Next thing I want to get to, and again, I think a lot of students will be very impressed with your story, but they're impressed with the fact that you're working for the Churchill Downs, which is something with the Kentucky Derby, that this is a mega event. And this is something we talk about, mega events, and what it does for horse racing, what it does for Kentucky, what it does for everything. So if you can take us, let's go right now pre-COVID, because this year was an anomaly. This was a very difficult year for all mega events, the ones that happened. And we look at the Olympics that was postponed. They could.
Sure.
So let's go pre-COVID. Can you take us leading up to the Kentucky Derby? Can you take us through a typical day? What is it like in Maggie Neil's life being a partnership activation manager for Churchill Downs?
Yeah, so, with Derby, typically, it's usually the first Saturday in May, and it's been that way every year except this year, really. So most of our off season is planning and connecting with our sponsors. We have a summit every year that we kind of engage with them and give them new ideas, get them to connect together for collaboration ideas, etc. But come January is when we really hit the ground running. And a typical day will include probably some touch point with our greater team, sales plus activation, and then a lot of coordination with other departments. We usually have probably at least once a week client meetings with each individual client or their agencies. And then we also have our projects that we oversee individually. So for instance, the event program is my responsibility. The red carpet and the green room are my responsibility. Credentials are my responsibility. So I'm in charge of overseeing those projects internally within our organization, as well as individually with my clients, as well as my other activation managers, so that if they have problems or questions, they come to me. So a lot of it is meetings about meetings, gearing up for kind of the real hustle season, and just making sure that all plans are in place so that when we get closer to the event, we're ready to move at full speed. And by the time we're in the last month, it is a sprint to the finish. I mean, they call it a marathon, but it's insane. We're working 10, 12-hour days just to make sure that everything is in order. We have signage that we're responsible for printing here on site, so making sure that all the logos are right, all the sponsors have signed off on it, that it's in the right place here at the facility. This year, still, I had a photo shoot for 2 days. It was an NBC commercial for Ford. So I was their on-site liaison. So I was riding around with them, making sure they were where they were supposed to be and not where they weren't supposed to be, making sure that we had the right security clearance to be where we are, that operations knew where we were going to be, making sure that we were approved to be on track. So, each sports property is going to be different with what those kind of parameters are. But here is mostly just getting this facility ready to go and making sure that, we're at the point of presentation, because we have clients on site. We have 160,000 people that come on site typically. So, making sure that everything is presented in the best way possible. And there's a lot of emails, a lot of emails.
So I guess kind of moving into this year, you guys just got done hosting the Kentucky Derby last week. Obviously the big challenge was going from 160,000 people to really zero in attendance. But were there any other difficulties this year above and beyond? Or, how did you guys even approach hosting this mega event knowing that we wouldn't have anybody in attendance?
Yeah, so we had a unique situation because we were within that major crunch almost when things started shutting down mid-March. That was when our major deadlines were about to hit. So I think it was like the 16th of March when we formally postponed the event from May 4th to September 5th. And we were hoping at that time that that was enough, that all we had to do was kick the can a few months down the road, things would level off, and we could continue as we had planned with everything at, full capacity. Obviously that was not true. The next months leading out were very interesting. It was a lot of wait and see, a lot of conversations about what was safe, what could we pull off in a safe manner, and what did we need to still do out of obligation to both our fans and our sponsors. So we actually held a digital derby event on our original date in May, where we had NBC broadcast the 2015 American Pharoah year, but we also had a company that created a digital race of all the Triple Crown winners that used algorithms based on all of the past performances, not just their derby races, but of a lifetime of all 13 Triple Crown winners. Basically, it was a lottery to see which horse would win. You could go online and wager. I think it was a lottery. It wasn't a wager because it was a game of chance. And it was a very successful event for us. So at that point, we're like, okay, we got this. Now we're looking to September. Let's move forward. So until about, let's say, a month out, we were still planning to have a socially distanced, masked, limited capacity event. And then as those plans came together and as things kind of still looked on the grim side as far as COVID was concerned, we knew that we couldn't pull it off. And 2 weeks before the event was when we announced that we would be spectator free. We weren't completely spectator free. The only people that were allowed on site were the actual horse owners, trainers, and jockeys and their families. So it was a limited capacity, but when I say limited, I think it was a couple hundred people maybe that still volunteered to come and still had to subscribe to mask wearing, temperature checks, etc. So it was a very, very different event. And it had been evolving that whole time. So there was a lot of hurry up and wait that came along with that. But our facility is so large here that you would assume that we could, space everyone out, but it also means then you're responsible for all those people that are on site. So even if we had 30,000 people, okay, well, how are you getting them in? How are they leaving? How are you keeping them distance in the concession lines? There's just too many factors to mitigate that made it worthwhile for us to continue with spectators. So we still had the race, we still gave away the money, we still broadcast it on NBC, but it was a very, very different event than we would have even imagined when we first postponed in March.
For sure. I do have to comment because I forgot about it temporarily, but you just reminded me about it. I absolutely loved the virtual race on the Kentucky
Digital Derby Day.
It was awesome. I remember watching it in the living room with my wife, and I'm like, this is really fun because we got to see Secretary, American Pharoah, and all these horses that we've kind of forgotten about a little bit. So I really enjoyed that, and I wish we could continue to see these digital virtual reality type events continue. I think it'd be neat.
I mean, honestly, esports is the new frontier.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and we talk about that a lot in our sport and society course specifically. That's actually a topic we're talking about this week, so I'm glad you brought that up. Some side questions about this year's Derby that I do just want to ask. Did you get a chance to walk by Pet or do anything to Authentic? Oh.
I was in the winner's circle when he came over after the race. GH Mum is a champagne partner of ours, and part of their activation is that after the race, the winning jockey gets a bottle of champagne and sprays everyone. So I was standing there waiting to give that over to Johnny, and that's when Bob got knocked over by Authentic. So I was present for that.
Okay. That was going to be my, go ahead.
No horse interaction.
That was going to be my follow-up. Have you had the opportunity to meet Bob Baffert?
I have, yeah. Yeah, he's a pleasant person. We very business.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he's, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's the all-time winningest owner trainer.
I think he's now tied for second.
Okay, so he's not there yet, but he's, I think, the most
6
well-known one right now, just because of industry over the last couple of years. So very
Well,
cool.
and he's visible. I mean,
Yeah.
he's probably our celebrity, other than Victor Martinez, who was on Dancing with the Stars. That's that's it.
And one last kind of piece, again, another great piece of advice or nugget that you threw in there, I think it's very applicable and great information to the students, is more so now than ever, it seems like you're doing it, but it's a skill that you have to work in the sport industry. And that's the ability to think on your feet, pivot, change direction when need be, because sport is ever evolving and keeps changing all the time. So you mentioned that you guys were successful in being able to offer this because of your willingness to adapt to the time and to pivot and to do what's in the best interest of your fans, your sponsors, your participants. I think that's a great piece of advice or kind of a nugget for them. So
Yeah, and who knows what the future holds. So I think you have to be on your toes with it, because the NFL's kind of next up as far as what's going to happen and how they're going to handle it. So you can only work with the information that you have at your disposal, but you have to think through every different aspect of your fan experience and your facility, and be able to do that successfully.
okay, we're gonna move into the last question here. I could go on and on with you about this for all day, but for my students, I know they'll be happy that this isn't a 4-hour Zoomcast. But the last piece that I do want to throw out, and you've given us a lot. You've given us a lot of great applicable advice and direction with your story and with the profession in general. But if you had to think back to maybe the best piece of advice that you've ever been given in regards to working in the sport industry that you could share with them, I would love to hear what could you recommend, or what would be the best thing that they can take away from this Zoomcast episode?
So my old boss's motto is always perception is reality. And whether that's your sponsors, your fans, your coworkers, whatever someone thinks is what they believe. So whether it's how you're handling a PR situation, whether it's the transparency you have with your clients, whether it's how much hustle that you have, what others perceive of you is going to be, their takeaway at the end of the day. And that's not meaning to be deceitful in any way, but it's meaning how important your impression that you make on others really is. So whether it's putting your best foot forward, whether it's being approachable, whether it's, again, to your point of being flexible and able to pivot, your ability to think on your feet and multitask. Sports is always going to be changing, and the situation that you find yourself in today isn't going to be the one that you find yourself in tomorrow. I mean, I would have never predicted that this is where my career would have brought me. So to be in this role and excelling and enjoying it is all because of the work I've put in leading up to it. So, I think that the most important thing you can do is, just continue to hustle, continue to take experiences, good and bad, and learn from them, and know that, other people are always watching.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, Maggie, thank you so much. We got a lot of great, useful information from you. And again, your story on how you got here is so impressive. So I want to thank you for taking the time to spend with us and hopefully impact, motivate, inspire some of the next generation of people in the sport industry. So
Good luck, everyone.
With that being said, we'll wrap this one up. Again, I'm looking forward to continuing these series. We will have our episode 3 coming out in 2 weeks from now. So once again, Maggie, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
You got it.